Okay, so welcome everyone. It is now Tuesday, I think that we are. I get lost in terms of living life and I forget what day we are. We are Tuesday, aren't we, Chris?
Very Tuesday, that day, we're always trying to find what should we do with this day.
Yes, and you know what? Chris and I has recently connected. We was connected by the wonderful, wonderful friend of his. Would you want to name his name? I have to really honestly thank him. I left him a message. Vinny, the wonderful and amazing Vinny that put us in connection. And since we connected has been so powerful. We're so in line in so many ways. It's crazy to have another brother share similar alignments and passions and vision. And we're both passionate about serving men in this community. So let me first do a really brief intro of Chris. Chris, first of all, welcome onto the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure connecting with you when we first did a couple days back where we got a chance to speak at length. And I said after speaking with you when I messaged you that the congruency and the alignment of the connection, there was a flow and an ease there that told me that this was something that was meant to happen. So the eagerness for which I agreed to like come on your podcast, the turnaround time was pretty quick. And definitely thank you, Vinny. Vinny's great. He is a wonderful connector of people. I absolutely love him. He's a big mover and shaker in the social circle.
I love it. So, a brief intro. So, today's podcast is going to be on men coming home to themselves, a beautiful journey of humanity. But here we are here to serve men. It doesn't take away from anything from the woman because it also relates to you. But in this particular themes right now, we are messaging the men and sharing some of the lessons that we've learned through our own personal struggle. So here we go in terms of a little bio for Chris. It is not an extensive one. It is just a really brief description.
Yeah, they call it the elevator pitch. Like if you ever meet a producer in the elevator, you give them
Mhm.
30, 25 seconds of the idea of a movie that you want. So today when I was sending you the details in the email, I was giving you my elevator pitch, and I know you were going to weave it in with whatever words you would choose. But I like keeping it short and succinct.
I love it. All right. So Chris is a devoted father of a daughter, also very much in love and involved in filmmaking, and an emerging author driven by passion for storytelling and meaningful impact. He thrives on exploring the unknown, asking deeper questions, and inspiring personal growth. He's a passionate community builder. He is dedicated to creating transformative campfire circle that strengthen men's health and connection. He's a hopeless romantic. He deeply values love, purpose, and the extraordinary relationship he shared with his partner, who is all the way in Holland and Poland. Relationship at long distance, not always easy, but somehow they make this magic happen. With a vision of living self-reliantly in the countryside, Chris is building a life rooted in authenticity, service, and lasting legacy. And that's just a small little description about him. So I am so honored to be in your presence. And I think people who are going to be listening to this podcast as well will be. So let's dive into our story. But first, before we do
Oh,
that,
really good synopsis. I mean, goodness, I can put that on my epitaph, or I can just put out like if I can just have a general resume for my life. That'll be it. You hit all the highlight points right there. I mean, if you don't know me, that's the thing that I would want to use. That's for sure.
oh, that's perfect. I'm going to share that with you. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I'll put it in my bios and on social media and carry it around the business card. She gets me. She really gets me.
Oh, you know what? We were both just jokingly. I normally don't share this with a lot of people, and I was sharing like one of my childhood cartoons in memory that I love. And I was talking to him about how, making an impact in the world and joining unity and stuff, that how I love the concept, the ideology and the analogy of the Care Bear of coming together, all these Care Bear and shining love to people to making a better world. And I was thinking nobody's going to really relate to this. And then talking to him about like this animation called Captain Planet, where people from all different country uniting together with their powerful ring and they kind of shoot it up in the air. And when all of them are united, that's when Captain Planet comes and try to rescue and save the world, and every single one have their unique power. It's just so beautiful. And he's like, oh my God, those are the two different ones that I use as an
That message
analogy.
today. And when I heard you say that, man, I got goosebumps because those two examples is what I use for what human beings can do to fix whatever ails us right now. The unity and the coming together and the joining of our individual talents and skills and wherewithal and creating this entity, whether it's the Care Bear stare and they put their energy and their hearts together and make it happen. And Captain Planet, Captain Planet, I saw that. I was born in Guyana, and
Hmm.
it was we used to get like the American channels instead of the Canadian ones. So I
Mm.
would come over here when I came over here, and I would ask people, you know, Captain Planet, like who's that? We don't know. But this is something that I always kind of refer to because imprints in childhood carries through these ethos building
Hmm.
either cartoons or nursery rhymes. It kind of sets the stage for your ethos and your morality as an adult. And that was one of the shows I really liked because it was a kid from every continent. So you had the four elements plus heart. And in South America, because Guyana is in South America, the South American guy was Mati, and Mati was heart. So you had
Yes.
and fire, water, and they all joined. And when they put their rings and their power together, Captain Planet was summoned. They went after the villains,
Hmm.
solve things, and fix things. And when you said that, I'm like, oh my goodness, not only the energy and the feeling and whatever quote unquote vibes I got from speaking with you a couple days back, I'm like, all right, this is the proof right here. This is it. Like, what are the chances in one voice note to mention two things that mean as much to me in terms of it being some kind of parallel or template to have an overlay to show to the world what we can be like, and for you to just have that within your pocketbook to just mention, I'm like, hey, this is a connection that is well worth pursuing and cultivating. So that solidified, that stamped, rubber stamped the approval there. Sure.
I love it. I don't share it often with people. I just felt called to. So it's so
Oh,
aligned, and the serendipity of it all is just so magic. And I think people are going to get a lot of magic from this interview today. So let's dive down with regards to that story. Take us to the moment of how you actually went through your own personal struggle, experiencing depression and a really, really dark moment in your life in around 2008 after, 9/11s and so on, where you actually kind of closed off and disconnected from the world and working through that to coming to now actually serving Men's Circle, the men's campfire with the Phoenix Rising and all of that. So
yeah.
take us to those dark moments so that people can kind of see themselves through you, and then leading them to the path of where you are now and continuing to making impact in the world.
Well, that's a very good question. You're an amazing interviewer, by the way, let me just say. So in 2008, it kind of started with what would be considered conspiracy theories or alternative truths. And I was in my late 20s in 2008. I think I would probably be about 28 actually. And pretty much the idea of who I was going to be and the kind of successes I wanted was the mainstream idea. And in a way, when we were children, we get programmed from our parents or surroundings, and some of the dreams that we have and the people that we think we want to be, it's not truly coming from who we choose because we really don't know ourselves. And this is a part of the growth process. This is a part of the journey that we have to go through, the getting of something and then the breaking away of that. And
Mhm.
this is what happened in 2008. Whether or not you agree with it, 9/11 being potentially an inside job, the central bankers, how the money system was started, the quote unquote elites, so to speak.
Mhm.
My lady calls them the parasites world, and a lot of the world view and the ideas and the beliefs that I had in system, it came crashing down. And it was intriguing at first, like an adventure, but I went into the rabbit hole deep, right? So 2008, I mean, I got laid off from Fidelity Investments. I had that job for about 5 years, and that was working in a corporate world. And if you know Fidelity, it has like the Masonic triangle or the pyramid as its emblem. And it's there was okay, what kind of world am I living in? The world that I think that I'm living in, I'm not actually living in.
Mhm.
And from the standpoint of the macro story being broken down, it kind of seeped its way into my life. And I started questioning, like, what are you about? And that's something that gradually took a toll on me because I guess in some ways, when you're giving energy and investment into something and you come to find out that that thing is a lie, then you kind of figured, what do I do? And I just kind of like took a step back. I mean, I was unemployed after being laid off, and I was that way for a good year or so. And I was just like looking into things and researching, getting books and reading, and a lot of my time and energy was focused on this like newfound truth and discovering like what is the truth about this world. And I've always been a truth seeker. Being a Sagittarius sun, I
Mhm.
love exploring and I love philosophy and I love searching for truth and hidden meaning.
Mhm.
And this situation, the circumstances presented a wonderful opportunity. But like an untested child that gets let loose into a candy shop,
Mhm.
I went full force, full steam ahead. And there's a lot of neglect and a lot of abandonment that came for stuff in my own life that I really didn't care about because I thought to myself, like, if we're living in such a messed up world, what's the point of being good? What's the point of putting effort towards it? And then I was rebelling in a self-destructive way.
Mhm.
And that started me to like question my identity, who I was, what it is that I wanted. And that was tough because my ego was really kind of set in as to who I wanted to be, where I was going. But I was in this tug of war within my heart, within my soul. And a couple of years after that, I really kind of suffered with depression and anxiety because, there wasn't the narrative in my head wasn't matching and I didn't have anything to replace it. And that was the scary part. I knew that the world where I was before, I didn't want that life. The lies I've been told, the world views that I had to adjust. I became disillusioned with the world, and that crept into my own world. That crept into my own life on a micro level, and it was very tough in my late 20s to maybe around 34, 35, my mid 20s. It was looking back, I could see why things had to go the way they did, why
Mhm.
it had to be as painful as it had been. And it's always hindsight is 2020. When
Mhm.
you're in it, oh my gosh, it's hard to have that perspective because you're in it. But
Yep.
I had a lot of supportive family. I had a really supportive ex. I don't think I would still be here alive if it wasn't for her.
Mhm.
Suicidality became a big part of my life in the last couple of years that we were in a relationship together. And it got like when I was looking at who I was, looking at this world and thinking to myself, what's the point of living? What's the
Mhm.
point of creating something and building it and giving energy? What's the payoff? What's coming back to me? And that took a few years for me to kind of like come out of. And
Mhm.
I did, and I have, and I can see being where I am right now in my challenges and struggles into manhood and being a man. And I can see how that suffering and being looking into the abyss and undergoing the experience, how that information and that experience and the data that I receive, I'm now able to relate to men. I'm now able to relate to human beings who are going
Mhm.
through something similar because we all awaken in our own time. And
Yep.
I feel like a way shore or a guide or a bridge
Mhm.
old world to the new world, from having the notes, from having the know-how. And there's no such thing can replace experience. You can read books, which is great. It can set you up for knowledge, but the learning that you get from experiences are just
In
it
comparison, yeah.
can't compare it.
Mhm.
It's something else. I mentioned because you asked what was one of my favorite quotes, and
Mhm.
this quote by Mark Twain that goes, "I never let my schooling interfere with my education." And
Mhm.
life is the greatest educator, right? So you can go to school, you can go to business seminars, but the experience that you have, the journey that you live is the pool that you draw data from, that you draw wisdom and knowledge from. So
Mhm.
I dare I say it, I am looking back, I'm quite content that I suffered the way I did. I'm quite content that I had to be beaten up and my ego had to be reshaped. And I think maybe if I surrendered a little bit more, if I wasn't as stubborn, maybe it wouldn't have been as long as it had. Maybe it wouldn't have been as intense as it had.
Hmm.
And I could see how, the pinning against of my will versus thy will, at what point or in that point, how it didn't work for me because of how locked into I was in terms of what I thought my identity was. But
Hmm.
that was quite a journey, a useful
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
enough, I saw it with this the Odyssey last week, and it's a similar kind of tale. It's amazing how this story has such an overlay for so much of the micro that happens within our world. So I looked at the movie, I'm like, my gosh, this is not just a movie about monsters and about a hero conquering something and getting home. It's about the human journey, and
Hmm.
we can all identify with it. And the pain and the suffering and the unfavorable discomfort, although it wasn't welcome, it's definitely needed. It's needed for expansion. It's needed for evolution. It's needed for people to come into remembering of who
Hmm.
we are. And
Hmm.
I approach difficulties and challenges that I now experience in my life with that kind of mindset. I'm like, okay, there's usefulness here. This is not here to go against me. This is here for me. And,
Yeah.
my ego might have its entitlement. It might have its expectations, but that part, as I'm not in my mid 40s, that aspect of my being and that aspect of my mind, my perspective has become a lot wiser, has become a lot more, I guess, expedient and practical considering the length of time, the how long we live and in my
Absolutely.
second half and I'm excited. I feel more younger, my body's much better, my energy is greater. I'm excited. I'm excited about the years to come and the decades to come.
There is so much to unpack in what you just said. I kind of just let you go with regards to this and for people to digest. So let me break it down in very tangible way. I'm a very practical human being as much as I am idealistic and a dreamer and a visionary. I do like practicality for sure. So first thing of something that you said, I think that, at the time when you were experiencing this, is like, what's the point? Like, if the world is going to go to shit anyway, why spend effort and energy trying to create something good when it's going to all fall apart anyway? And you know what? Like the fact that you brought your experience then to today, I
Yes,
think there's a lot of people with everything that's happening in the world right now feels exactly the same way
exactly.
that you felt then. So
That's
I want to be able to honor the people who are going through this thing, wondering, um, here's a great example of Chris. He's still standing, he's here, and it's worth the fight. And the thing is, you have to find your own meaning behind all of that. You
yes.
can't give up on whatever you truly believe in or the purpose or that fire deep down inside, even though it might be buried by a whole lot of stuff. Let's just trying to untangle that little bit at a time. So there is
Exactly.
definitely hope for sure.
I want to add on that. That's an amazing point to make, by the way, because it is relevant to what's happening in our world. And at this juncture, if I were to compare to 2008, if I were to experience my awakening now, it would have been far more intense. We are so connected to this technotronic world, and the reliance on these machines and these devices has made us stray away from our own faculty and our sense of humanity and the sense of agency and wherewithal. Um, and in addition to a lot of people, a good deal more are going through the awakening process where they're seeing the old systems, the lies, the manipulation, the way that they have been played. And what's tough is that when you're attached to something like any kind of relationship, an abusive relationship per se, it's not just coming out of that relationship, it's going to be what replaces that. And that unknown, that uncertainty, it's being caught in this middle place that people usually go back, they revert back to the old because it's the familiar and comfortable. And it's a trying time because if that comfortability is taken away and they don't have any clue what's ahead, they're in
Mhm.
a place of like, I don't want to go back. I know what that's about, but I don't know where I'm going. And because human nature and the mind looks for predictability, looks for certainty. Without having that, that can lead to a lot of emotional, psychological strife. But this is where belief and faith comes in, because as much as we're worldly creatures, as much as we're scientific, there is such a thing as the unknown. There is the known and there is the unknown.
Mhm.
And when you approach the unknown, we no longer have the hearts that we did when we were children. So when as adults we approach the unknown, there's always the packaging of fear and doubts and the need to control and the need to be on it. And you have to reconcile yourself that you're not going to have either the information, you're not going to have the wherewithal to have that level of certainty and confidence.
Mhm.
It does not mean that you would not be able to deal with it. It does not mean that you would not be able to meet the moment. Is that when you're thinking about these scenarios, you don't have the same frame of reference, right? Because of where you're at. So that truly is where you have to rely on your faith. You have to rely on your belief in something bigger. It doesn't have to be a deity. It could just be the bigness of the world. You have to trust in the goodness, not only the neutrality of it, to know in your place, although you don't have the answers and you would like to, that it's going to work out. And I can tell you that from my own life. When I climbed down that tree, I didn't climb down it gracefully. I fell, I hit a branch and hit the next branch, a few branches. I got bruised up. I made it to the bottom, but I made it. And it could have been a lot more graceful. It could have been a lot more easier. But based on the choices that I've made and based on how my ego went about business, I held on. I touched the hot stove over and over again. And I learned like, okay, release, surrender, let go. And that's where we are. We're in a
Mhm.
place right now that the things that has brought us certainty and comfort and control, we're
Mhm.
losing grip of that. But just because we don't have grip of it doesn't mean we can get grip of something else. And we have to trust that.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to be able to use our time as efficiently as possible. We have 17 minutes before my next call, and I really want to dive even more deep
Oh my
down into
goodness, we're
this.
just getting into the
We are just getting into the juicy part. We will have part two with Chris for sure. Something of what you said, I look up my favorite quote from my wonderful role model, Bruce Lee. So he says, "Do not pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." And as I shared with you, Tony Robbins today, so he
very
says,
stoic,
"Don't."
by the way. You said that. It sounds very stoic, and stoicism is my favorite philosophy.
Is
That's another thing
it?
we have in common. When you mentioned Marcus Aurelius and meditation, I'm like, oh my goodness, any more proof that this connection was meant to happen? It was, yeah.
It's
It-
crazy, right? It's mind blowing. And you know what? I think that if we learn to accept, I think one of the biggest component is we fight, and you talk about that in terms of being defined, fighting against, you realize of this world is really not what you had envisioned in your mind, and learning about the lies and all of these concepts, we have to wrestle between that to find finally the truth that really speaks in alignment to you. So a lot of time people resort to the how do you say in more or less positive word is that we resort to the unproductive way
yes, that's
resorting,
yes.
yeah,
The lack,
resorting.
the,
Mhm.
the frustration, the feeling within ourselves when we feel disempowered, right? And how do we deal with that? We don't want to reconcile either to shame or that feeling of inadequacy and powerlessness. So the things that we do, we resort to maladaptive behaviors, either addictions,
Mhm.
maybe not caring, treating people like crap, uh,
Mhm.
violence at times too.
Mhm.
When it comes down to it, it's like, why would I care if the world that I live in is going to lie to me, manipulate me? I'm just going to do the same thing. And that can boomerang real quick, real quick. I mean, it takes the social contract that we have and the belief in the goodness of the world that we have. It's a fragile thing. And
Mhm.
it's predicated on truth. It's predicating on values. It's predicated on connectivity. And those are things where it is that I think that we have to make a point of keeping and reigniting and cultivating, because no person is an island unto themselves. And we're
Mhm.
living in a modern time, especially in North American Western culture, that has a really runaway train idea of independence, right? We've
Mhm.
forgotten that we're a part of a big world and interdependence is more fitting. And at times when we get caught up with that archetype and that state of being, that's the part that has to be adjusted because that's where you have the billionaires with their level of selfishness and people who don't care. They have all kinds of resources, and the same kind of mentality exists with the commoners.
Mhm.
This idea of like where your self-interest has to come at the cost of the world is
Mhm.
one of the older lies that we've told ourselves, and we have to just make adjustments on a fundamental level, the paradigms and the systems. And I think we're ready. I think we're in that place. I think that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, the shift in the world, the energetic field as well. Something on what you said, if you had to look back in your younger, the things, the lessons that you've learned now at the age of wisdom that you are and continue to expand and grow in that way, if there was three lessons you can pass on to your younger self, especially for men who had to deal with these things and had to resort to aggression, to force, to control, to actually be able to make sense of the duality of this world. What would you share with the audience right now of the three lessons that has served you very well to the Chris that you are today, if you were to pass on that message?
You have to come home to yourself. It's an inside job. I think the way we've been acculturated and programmed is to constantly be outside, either fixing things, accomplishing things, getting things externally, where when the world sees it, the world has a way of relating to us that looks to either validate through recognition or admiration to fill our own cup. But we have to be the one to take care of our inner constitution. And this world has always been the way it is, whether we see it as a good world or a bad world. But what's happened, people of the past were more self-reliant. They had a bit more constitution. They had more inner resourceability. And a big part of it, I know it's said over and over again, but you knowing who you are, discovering who you are, and loving yourself is probably task number one. It doesn't matter what your vocation is, it doesn't matter what your ambitions are. If you, as a unit, if you cannot take care of yourself, build yourself up, how are you showing up in the world? It's a relational thing, the things that we can just assume the uniform and assume the mask, but the player underneath it, if the player is broken, if the player is unhealed, if the player is not well, that's going to bleed through in whatever it does, whatever she does. So first and foremost, self-love. When you love yourself and you love yourself first and you love yourself more, you have enough love to give to the world. And love is not just the mushy, mushy, sappy, sappy way of looking at it. Love is the most versatile all-around player. And if you can think a state of being when you're content and happy, when you're driving down and someone cuts you off, you don't engage with them the same way. You have a certain kind of bandwidth, a certain kind of understanding, and that comes from the resources that you have within yourself. Because if you're constantly looking for the interactions in the outside world and you don't have control over half the things, you're not going to get it. And that's going to lead to frustration. That's going to make you look at yourself in all kinds of bad reflections. It's going to create feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. And then at times we can't reconcile our shame when we have those feelings. And then we go to the outside again by looking to lash out, by looking to perform, by looking to do something to alleviate that inner pain. So that's first and foremost. When I mentioned like one of the second point, the relationship that we have with money,
Hmm.
it's a relationship we have with ourselves. Okay. So the worthiness and deservingness that you see yourself, your money situation is directly tied to that.
Hmm.
Now, I used to be, and I'm moving away from this, not pious, but my conception of money is that it's like this thing which is separate from the immaterial, separate from the spirit, but it's not. It's just a currency. It's a material artifact for what is happening in the energetic world. And the more I look into it, the more I see how the way my self-image is and the way how I see myself is tied to maybe how I handle money. And it hasn't been the greatest. It hasn't I've done enough to get by. When I have it, I spend a lot and I wish I had more so I can spend more. But in terms of it coming to me, in terms of it staying with me, it's really it's really something that's a physical indication of what's happening with you metaphysically. And
Hmm.
what was the third one? I can't remember what it was exactly, but I don't know if you have it up on your computer, but let's leave it at that for now. Yeah.
I actually have it in my computer. Let me just share with you what you had wrote with regards
Certainly,
to
just
that.
jog my memory there a bit.
Absolutely. So the third one that you have here would be, okay, love is first, and then your worthiness with regards to prosperity and plenty. And then you had said it is an adventure to be experienced, so don't take it too seriously, have fun, and keep on learning. I think one of the big
That's
component is having fun.
That's a big one, right? Because adults, we forget to keep the child alive in our hearts and we get so caught up into the seriousness of the task and things that we do. It is an adventure. It is an adventure. I truly believe it. It is an experience with all kinds of things that are happening. And not taking it seriously and having fun is probably one of the more fitting, congruent way that you can meet this existence.
Mhm.
It's the adultness in us, or at least the misplaced adultness in us, that takes certain things that happen and gives it the seriousness and gives it a certain kind of egotistical validation that's tied to our self-interest and it's tied to our self-image. You know, when it's serious, it carries a bit more gravity than if it's playful or joking. So
Mhm.
we kind of have we look for the overlay of seriousness to then give a certain kind of payback or reciprocity for when we do things and how the world sees us doing things. So I'm all about that. One of my mission for life is to help this species, to be a muse, to be an agent, to help this species reignite the child in their hearts. Yeah, I really do think that that's going to be one of the primary solutions as to how we heal ourselves, how we fix our world, to bring back the child alive in our hearts. And we can do the adulting in the head. Okay. We
Mhm.
don't have to abdicate our responsibilities and our duties. We're still adults, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a childlike heart.
Absolutely. I'm all for it. You're singing my song for sure with regards to that. Something also that you touched on that really spoke volume for me is when you had mentioned, like, as we're going through this journey, the struggle, trying to figure out is the importance of enjoying that journey. And I love the idea. It makes me think of when I was listening to Tony Robbins. One of the things he said is that don't don't wish for less problem because having problem is a sign that you're alive because the only people that don't have problems are dead ones, like people who are dead. So I was like, oh, that's a really good one, right? So because once they're dead, there is no more problems. So there's nothing to live for, and this journey is an adventure. And problems is not really problems when you train yourself. And most of the very successful people just have this ability to be able to transform problems and chaos into uh like an opportunity, an upgrade. I always used to say with my boyfriend, oh, I'm about to go for an upgrade every time I go through
Like, what,
problems. I'm like,
for example, no,
I
that's
can't wait to meet my new version of me.
well, that's it, right? I mean, what a way to look at the instances and happenings in your life. I used to be in sales, and we used to have this saying, the road to progress is always under construction,
Mm,
right? So you can't have like if you have a road and no one's driving over, it's not being constructed. The reason why it's there's work that's being done is because it's being used. And I think the expectation of having a life without problems and ails and tribulations comes from the mentality of a misplaced adult heart in thinking that because we're in control, because we have agency, we have wherewithal, that we can take action to then minimizing is one thing, but to wholly get rid of it altogether, that's nearly impossible. Then we have all these built up kind of expectation and an ego that has this runaway kind of entitlement
mhm,
that has nothing to do with the reality of the world, but it's just based on some kind of fictitious desire and ambition that we can live lives without having the rain fall on us. We can live lives without having challenges and failures and loss and betrayals. And it's not going to be the case. And honest to God, I mean, would we want to live those lives?
mhm.
How would you be able to tell goodness if you didn't have bad? How would you be able to tell pleasure if you didn't have pain and joy without misery? So it's it's okay. It's good to speak about it in philosophical way. We can talk about it right now, but where the rubber meets the road is when you're in that moment to still have that mindset. Like you said about Tony Robbins, I think if you can teach it, is that we have to learn how to get out of our own ways because we're definitely capable.
Mhm.
It's really a mindset. It's not like going and performing something, learning martial arts. It's really within our system. And that paradoxically can be why it's difficult because it's in our minds. And while we do have control over our minds, not 100%, that very control is a thing that leads us to keep going back to these old ways and keep touching the hot stove and keep doing
Mhm.
the things that we know is bad for us. We
Mhm.
can easily make the choice to go somewhere else. We know we have the concept in our head, but truly in our hearts, is our heart stout enough? Is it solid enough to go to bat for us, to truly show love for us? So we have to be honest about that. I mean, who exactly would be the villain in this world, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Something of what I wanted to touch upon, like we're gonna do definitely a part two because the discussion is so
But yeah,
juicy.
I know
Like
we're just we're
we're gonna have a part two with
short.
regards to this. So the second part is what I want to link to is really the struggle of men, everything that they have to carry on their shoulder, carrying this world and having this expectation of succeeding in life and what that means while wrestling between the worlds that is conflicting with our identity and what we are pressured to be a certain way, to behave, to earn a certain income in order to feel validated, in order to feel like we are a part of a productive society in any ways. But the truth of the matter is, your reality, your world is what you make out of it. And the rest is just kind of like this playground that's kind of been given to you, but
That's
the one that gets to dictate it is really you. And that's why one of the movies that I love the most is Life is Beautiful or something? It's a Beautiful Life, the story with the Italian with, in the concentration camp when they're gonna be executed and him teaching his son to be playful and how life can really be beautiful. It is what you make it to. And I think when we learn to train ourselves to overcome little obstacle at a time, the problem is we think in the absolute, I either succeed or I fail. But
yeah,
no,
yes.
you can be in a progress level. You can be at this stage and not have all of the answer. And I think Oprah says it very well. It's something that I always follow by when I don't know what the bigger picture of where my life is going to lead is. I stop focusing on, well, asking a zillion question all at once. And just say, what is the next best step right now? What do I know how to do well? And what really calls me? And what does my heart tells me I should be following? And the instinct and the guidance that's within me that already has all of that answer and that wisdom. So trust it. So if people were to, want to reach out to you and want to know a little bit more about the interesting project that you got going on, tell us about what you're working on right now and how we can support you and how people can actually reach out to you.
Well, I think that's great. I agree with you. Let's keep the second half for mostly like the men targeted stuff because I know that's where we connect and that's primarily what I want to speak about as well.
Hmm.
You can reach me on TikTok. My handle is Campfire Phoenix and on Instagram as well. And then you can reach me either my email, it's Shivy, SHIVVVY at gmail.com, three V's. And I'm looking forward to creating communities, meeting people, building solid, deep, whether you want to call it spiritual, but immaterial connection. The part where we meet and we do tasks and projects and stuff that can happen after, but establishing that trust, establishing that sense of, our shared value and our shared common goals and our purpose is essential. And I look forward to the way I'm going right now in my second half of my life. The door or the pathway is open. I don't know where it is exactly, but I know the general trajectory. And getting back to what you're saying, what you said earlier about us actually relying on what it is that we have, our resourceability, the experience that we have, the knowledge, the value that we have to understand that there's enough that's there. And just because it's in the moment, just because we don't have the visibility of those things, doesn't mean that we're not capable and competent. And, we should want in some ways to have the adventure be unknown, to see what comes so it can be an adventure, but not have to worry that we're stepping up to the plate without knowing how to bat, that we haven't bat in our lives. We have bat. If life throws us a curveball, we can adjust. And it's having, like you said, it's not just the all or nothing approach, it's in using the dimmer, having perspective, understanding that, hey, you've lived a life, you've survived things, you've been through challenges, you've been through obstacles, you've overcome things. You know, when we think about things, our conscious awareness is not anywhere close to the totality of the experience that we have that we can draw from because our mind is like looking through an aperture of a camera. You know, there's only this that narrow place that we can see, but we are so much more than the way that we conceive ourselves to be,
Mhm.
right? So we
Mhm.
have to have, if it means that when we think about things consciously that we can't come up with it, that's where the belief comes in. That's where faith comes in because that can be the only thing that counters the analytical, linear, I must know things all the time. It's
Mhm.
just like you would know that you don't know things based on the things you know. And having a strong sense of uplift and a positive disposition in considering the trajectory of your life, not just a neutrality, not just, oh, it can go bad, it can go good, but the likeliness it is going to go good. And the only reason why you might not view it that way is because you're making a comparison with your expectation instead of allowing the thing to play out, the moment to play out, the happening to happen, and truly meet it objectively. And if you look at it without the comparison that you have, you'll be like, hey, this is perfect. This is meant for me. This is not against me. This is for me. But in the second half, I know I'm rambling here. In the second half, I'm looking forward to getting into it with the men's circle and men's health, and in particular, this aspect of it. And I know it can be for any human being, but my
Mhm.
gender right now, the species is just so isolated, misconception of what the idea of man is, and chasing after images that does not belong to us, and then failing after we get those images, and then having to do the work. And then when we do the work to correct, it's always a lot of work and it become overwhelming and frustrating. So to speak more about that and to give my fellow brothers a personal experience, any kind of guidance, any kind of notes from the abyss that I've seen, what to expect, and to let them know that, hey, you're capable of dealing with it. You will be able to handle this.
I love every bit of it. And so please stay tuned for part two. We're probably going to do that in the next couple weeks, not too far away. So either between 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, because we definitely want to hone in on that. And the men that are out there really need your guidance as a servant leader to actually share your
And
life
brotherhood,
experience, your
the
knowledge.
brotherhood. Yes, the fellowship, not only guidance per se, to know that we can just be peers, so we can be in a circle together. We don't have to be competitors. We don't
Mhm.
have to think that if I let someone into my vulnerability, that will be weaponized and taken advantage of me. Building a fellowship, like just like the Lord of the Rings, building a brotherhood, building community, right? Coming back to each other, coming back to our homes, within our own hearts, while being amongst each other.
One of my favorite movies is Lord of the Ring as well. Beyond. So I am a movie person. One of my
You
biggest
gotta check
thing
out
is
the Odyssey. If you haven't seen it, you have
I
to.
will check it out for sure. I wanted to thank you tremendously, Chris, for sharing all of your knowledge, your wisdom, your heart, and just speaking from your real authenticity and sharing your experience. I can't wait for part two. So I hope to the audience that you really enjoy this episode. Please connect with Chris if you want more information with regards to his Campfire for Men, or if you're a woman and you would like for your partner or your lover to be able to do that kind of personal work and you want to reach out to somebody who has the experience, has the knowledge for it, Chris is definitely your person. So, on that note, guys, I want to wish you a fantastic Tuesday, a wonderful week. Chris, I love you. Have an amazing time. So, bye, guys.
I love you as well. Take care, guys. Have a good
Thank you.
one. Bye.
Bye.